Halissa had been through a lot in the last year. Her older sisters being cooked alive in front of her home being reduced to a field of death, and everything she had ever known being shattered, and it being up to her to pick up the pieces. Pieces that were out of her reach and would cut her to even touch. The girls needed a morale boost, something, anything to give them something to grab onto, or they'd drift apart. A bit of fun with some healthy-looking boys? A few toys taken from them? Boy toys for the gang? That's the kind of thing to glue it together solid. Now? Now she was enduring the pounding of axiom totems cascading into her. Apparently, in the few minutes it had taken for them to get to the ship, those men were part of they had figured out everything they needed about her. She stares at the men. They claimed to be from some new race that crawled out of cruel space in the time that their planet went to hell. From how the roaring disruption waves didn't even move them, she could believe it. Her heart felt like it was about to pop, and the only reason she wasn't complaining was so that none of her girls would start screaming. They were relying on her to be strong. Then the door opens and they rush through. It takes a moment for them all to regain their bearings, and they look around the large room. There are many places at the table and data slates in front of them all. A human cyborg is regarding them all, his metallic fingers tapping on the table. Next to him, though, is an adorable young Nagasha boy. His hair is a curtain in front of his face, and she can only just see his eye poking out. "Well, hello there." Little Ames begins and gets a tail poke from Halissa to shut her up. Eye candy or not, these are serious people, she thinks. The kid's eye visibly rolls and he turns to the human. "Do I have to? They're just a bunch of thirsty women. If you can handle getting your medal, you can handle them," the man says, and the boy sighs before gathering himself. "All right then. My code name is Snaky. It is to be used at..." "Calling a Nagasha Snaky is a bit on the nose," Mariko notes. "I was the first Nagasha on this crew, and none of them have the tongue to properly pronounce Slathern. Now can I continue, or are we all just wasting our time?" Snaky demands, and there's some silence. "Good. We found Sudis Mirta. He's still upright and unharmed when everyone comes out from under the table. There's a slightly impish smile on his face, too. It is adorable, but also concerning, especially as the human next to him is clearly suppressing laughter. Anyways, we have successfully identified Vasud's Mrt. He pauses as they all flinch, and we're mostly ready to move, but we're also taking down her death field as we throw a bag over the bitch's head and lock her into stasis for future judgment. Your part is to monitor the feed of drones as they hunt down, and deliver chemical weapons to the layers of her living axiom totems and help the last few moments. When everything's in place, we flip the switch and Visuda's Mart's little horror field dies as my team and I grab the bitch, the human says. "You mentioned pay?" Halissa asks before one of her girls can say they'll do it. "Yes, it's something they all want to be part of, but if you can be paid to do something, then get paid to do something. Since there is no official bounty on Sud Smart, we can't offer a fair cut as we normally do. Instead, we're offering a Kutha coin each, and we'll triple it if there is actual danger to the ship. We do not suspect there to be a threat to the chainbreaker, but..." "Excuse me," Halissa says, and the human trails off and raises an eyebrow. "This is the chaining, isn't it?" She had recognized the ship as they were brought up to it and had feared the worst. The human nods. "Formerly. They got their grubby hands on me, and the moment I had a chance I led a slave uprising and slaughtered the former crew, and found me mostly dead in one of the chambers," Slytherin states softly. He brings up his hands and pushes back his hair, revealing not only a destroyed eye socket and cybernetic eye, but also that his fingers have been replaced by cybernetics. He then tosses a data slate onto the table with a sardonic grin. "But enough about my tragic backstory, let's talk about yours. Vasud Smart's real name is Iva Grace, a Kobe of semi-amphibious ancestry. a master's in biological sciences and a doctorate in chemical engineering. She is between jobs and formerly employed by the Bird and Core cloning organization until she suddenly decided to make mutilated clones of herself that then produce the death fields over the planet, the human says, tapping a button, and suddenly the projector on the table shows a Kobe woman with very slick skin and bright green with blue highlights. We don't know what caused her to do these things yet, as she's been acting otherwise normal and grounded individual focused on her career and personal skills. How do you know it's her? Alyssa asks, and Slytherin points to the data slate that she finally picks up. It's a report about something called a pale generator, and the image of it is absolutely disgusting. Those things are the source of the field. The field that we've learned has a severe gap in its defenses. It won't attack anything with a specific genetic profile, a profile shared by all the generators and by Iva Grace, which is why we believe her to be Vasud's MRT. If she isn't, then we're going to be getting a lot of answers out of her anyways, the human says. Right, anyways, you girls will be helping me out. As I said, we're finishing things up. Hopefully this is the end of it, but Slytherin shrugs. Are you in or not? What happens if you all fail? Alyssa asks. We start piling on the bullshit, firepower, and sheer crazy until she breaks or we do. It tends to work, the human says. Now then, if there are no other questions, it's time to get you girls out and into your workstations for this OP. The sooner we start, the sooner we can stick the bitch's head on a spike. The first warning she got that something was wrong was a sharp, stabbing sensation of pain that was not her own. It was felt from a distance, and she turned in confusion. Could that be one of the prototypes? Why would it suddenly be in agony? That's when the bag went over her head, followed by a hand gripping her through the canvas. The axiom in the hand tried to push down her consciousness, but she wasn't exactly something that could be knocked out. How the fuck is she still conscious? A man snarls in an unknown language as she fights hard. While they can't knock her out with axiom, they're not fool enough to let her gather enough axiom to do anything but squirm and try in vain to bite and claw through the tough bag. She must have modified herself. Another voice answers before she suddenly gets the sensation of movement before being slammed into something hard. Sparks dance under her eyes as she kicks, and the sensation of axiom pushing down on her consciousness returns. It's a lot harder to resist this time. Activate contingencies. She says out loud, and she feels the command go off in the axiom before she hears her second experiment roar as it breaks out of its containment. Fuck, here we go. Sweet mother of mercy, Airfarce whispers as the Chainbreaker's view screen zooms in on the source of the extreme axiom distortion. The pale generators are all choking on death, but this new thing, it's the size of a mountain and rising up from the middle of a gigantic lake, a huge flattened face screaming from the planet below and glaring up at them. It sees them. It knows it's them that's the threat. How it knows or what it's about to do, he doesn't care. He has to dodge. He has to move, and he has to fight a thing the size of a city. He engages the maneuvering thrusters to dodge a growing blast from the thing down on the surface. He takes aim with the laser and plasma cannons and lets loose a salvo down at the gigantic mass of putrid living flesh. They slam against a strange barrier that registers as a high-class shield. Captain, are those rods from God loaded? We need them about 10 minutes ago. Yes, kill it. Pukey orders from the surface of the world. The hell is that thing? Onyx demands. Dead. Airfarce replies as he lines up the shot and lets loose the first barrage from the railguns. He follows it with lasers and plasma bombardment as a distraction, even as he jolts the ship to the side to dodge the next blast from the writhing thing that had boiled up from under one of the planet's largest lakes. They hadn't even considered looking into the wild places or that there would be threats outside the cities and towns. The 10-meter-tall pillars of tungsten covered in an inch-thick tri-tite coating crash home, and he can hear it. The thing roars, and despite there being hard vacuum between them, he can still hear it. Onyx screams as well, and he guns the engine even as he feels blood oozing down the sides of his head. The unexpected dive of the chainbreaker causes the next blast from the distorted face emerging from the landscape to miss. Barely. Several alarms start going off as several cannons are shorn off by the sheer force of the attack. Prep leftover mustard gas. Feed the fucker death. Pukey's voice echoes from the comms on the ship. Copy that. Airfarce grits out as he feels the controls creak ever so slightly under his grip. You hear that? Anyone who can prep the gas canisters for a drop-off, prep them. I got it, Snaky barks into the comms. Come on, we've got death to deal. He bellows out, throwing aside his drone control and rushing out of the room. Thankfully, the other Nagasha follow him. He takes advantage of his tail to press up against both sides of the corridor as Airfarce's maneuvers overtax the inertial dampening and throw the ship from side to side. Whatever the hell is going on, it's bad. No backing down, no backing off. Fear pushes forward and not back. I am undaunted, he chants to himself as he leads the girls through the ship. There, in the starboard aft cargo bay, they were locked down and sealed tight. Everyone lock yourself down next to a pallet. We need to release them on the signal. What is this stuff? The deadliest poison on the planet. Death in liquid form, and the moment the canister is breached, it's death in the air. Why do you need us? It's just a button press, right? If shit goes sideways, we need to cut the straps manually. And shit goes sideways most often when it's going down. Snaky calls back as he gets into place nearby one of the pallets and prepares to release. Are you in position? Airfarce demands. The clouds the ship is diving down through. Then the sound hits them. A cracking boom akin to a boulder the size of a moon shattering under sheer force. Then another roar, in the air itself as much as in their ears. But there's less pain this time. The field is dying and the monster's vector of attack is fading. Now they just have to kill it in case it can generate one of its own. The hell is going on? Shit's going pear-shaped, so we're hitting it until... Snaky begins to explain to the troubled gangster before a red light erupts from the ceiling. Hit the release. 2/3 of the pallets immediately start moving, including Snaky's, and he's already moving, his fingers shifting in configuration to produce a holographic blade. He slices the tethers holding down the nearest locked pallet. Cut the straps. Thankfully, the girls are ready with their knives, and the stragglers join the rest of the pallets as they're sent tumbling out the side while the chainbreaker banks. Then they see it. I was hatched beside that lake, one of the girls whispers in horror as the sunken, gasping face snarls up and spits fire towards the chainbreaker. Gray tendrils with skulls on them stare up at the sky, and then a series of shapes slams into the creature. It screams in agony and visibly seems to be sucking in a breath tainted by the smoke pouring out of the free-falling pallets. As the cargo bay doors close, their last view of the creature is the colossal abomination choking and screaming. You idiots! Do you ignorant savages have any idea what you've done? She demands the moment she's removed from the bag. She's not a fighter, she's not a killer, and she's not a bad person. She was working on things more important than petty considerations like morals or petty things like the wasted lives of the feckless and aimless. She doesn't care that she's being glared at by the most robust-looking Tret cyborg she's ever seen or Crimson Hewer Canador mercenaries in full-power armor. They have to know about the inexcusable mistake they've made. My experiments could have saved countless lives, would have made pirate raids and the petty ambitions of conquerors a thing of memory. Do you have any idea how many people you've damned this day? Do you have any idea how many people your ambitions have killed? A few billion, a small sacrifice for a greater cause, she answers immediately, and the cyborg grabs her around the neck and starts to squeeze with pneumatic force. "You kill me and everyone else dies. We've killed your long-necked pets and the thing in the lake is breathing its last," he says with a deadly certainty as his eye burns a brighter and brighter red. "More," she gasps out as she feels the bones in her neck slowly start to crack under the brutal force. The force lessens slightly. "Where?" he asks in a low, rumbling tone that skips right over sexy and into terrifying. This isn't a man, not a man as she knows them. This is a predator, furious, wounded, and with enough bloodlust for 1,000. "Everywhere," she answers smugly. She has the upper hand, she has the power, and the door opens and a distortion walks in, dodges the Crimson Hewers who attack and slaps the weapon out of the hand of the cyborg Tret as she fades into view. A rail-thin woman with a sunken complexion and flat eyes. She looks starved at best, amputated of her every sexual aspect at worst, and she levels her hand at Iva's face. The Kobe dies instantly. Her last view of the world is the cybernetic fist of Pukey slamming into the raised arm of the assassin. The resulting shockwave tears the shirt off around Pukey's fist and arm, even as a pair of Panzeros fade into view holding rifles to her back, and the Crimson Hewers bring their brutal blades to bear against the stranger. It happens all at once as Iva dies. The shockwave as Pukey slams his fist into the assassin inspires Nuit and Suar to fire their weapons into her back at point blank as Vexa and Went bring down their weapons. She contorts through all of it backwards, and Pukey's forced to contort in a similar way to both avoid the mosh pit of supremely deadly attacks, but also follow the killer. She went right through the middle and seems only mildly surprised as Pukey, who jumped over the mess, comes down on her, and she catches his cyborg fist and holds it still with one hand. "Empty, I may be, but there is warmth to know you have done the work of God." "What?" Pukey demands before she starts to squeeze and the servos and actuators in his arm start to break. "I was called to kill her. Now I may collect," she answers before suddenly letting out a sound of pain as Pukey slams the top of his head into her face. She staggers back holding her broken nose and seems shocked beyond belief he hit her. "You're collecting nothing," he snarls as she stares at him in shock. The blood dripping down her face is pitch black and as thick as tar. It evaporates in contact with the light into black smoke that dissipates almost instantly. "You hurt me. I have been empty of all things, including pain, for centuries," she notes with something finally showing behind her eyes. "Then let me remind you what pain is," Pukey growls out as he charges before faking with his cybernetic arm. She goes to block it and catches a brutal kick to the side of her knee. There's a scream filled with more shock than pain as she collapses to the ground. He draws his backup pistol and presses it against her head. "Now, you're gonna tell me who the fuck you are and why you're interfering with our operation, or I'm going to ventilate your murderous skull. You were doing God's work, then you hand faltered. That is all." She answers, looking up at him and staring down the pistol's barrel without fear. "Who are you?" "I am Hollow. I have no name," she answers and tilts her head. "You humans are interesting." She then rises up at him and he fires right into her head, but she dissolves into smoke around the bullet and is simply gone. "Well done, human." Her voice echoes around him, and then her presence is completely absent. "They're real," Vexa mutters, and Pukey turns to regard her. "They're not supposed to be real, but she was here, the Hollow." "Great, so this shit's just started. We have no information beyond there being more bioweapons. We've used our entire gas supply, and now we have Hollow assassins popping around. Whatever the fuck that means, fucking great."